Hello, my name is Morgan Allen, and for my topic, for my Black Resilience Project, I chose the discrimination of African Americans that they face through lawmaking in the United States. As I just stated, I chose lawmaking in the United States. For centuries, African Americans have faced discrimination in laws set forth by our country. This ranges from local state laws to federal laws and as far as back to the Constitution. Outdated and racist laws have a large negative impact on generations of African Americans. As I stated before, my challenge I chose is racist lawmaking in the United States. The topic of racist law discrimination against all African Americans, but my main target population is young Black adults, especially males. The history of lawmaking in America was built on racial inequality and the suppression of communities of color. I chose to break my background information into two sections. First, we will look at laws made in the past, and then I will go into my present section. Voting and citizenship was denied all the way until 1870. The trauma of slavery still has effects on the community years after. Laws put into place after slavery are still preventing and limiting African Americans to what they can and cannot do. During the Jim Crow era, Black codes were put into place, and many states passed laws which applied to Blacks. And under these laws, Blacks were leased out to carry out various jobs despite the 13th Amendment, which prohibited slavery. Oregon did not ratify the 15th Amendment until 1959, which was the right to vote on account of color and race. Next, we will look into more present-day laws of recent laws because African Americans are still being suppressed after the passing of the 14th and 15th Amendment. However, Black votes did surpass white votes for the first time in 2012, showing that they can use their voice. But after this, in 2013, came Shelby County versus Holder. This was a strict voter ID requirement, which was disproportionately held by whites, and this law would suppress African American voters once again. Today's laws are going back to old tactics to make it more difficult for African Americans and people of color to vote. In 2017, people of color were up to 4 times more likely to face racial discrimination while trying to vote or engage in politics. This is all very important because some of my solutions date back to these type of laws for voting in African Americans. But I also feel it is important to touch on the fact that there are many laws that relate to drugs, murder, and other convictions which African Americans are more likely to be placed under today. Here are some statistics from the information I was just telling you about voting. You can see in this first one that after Jim Crow laws, more African Americans were able to vote, and you can see the range got smaller. And then there's also reports of discrimination in politics, and African American adults lacked full voting rights in 2016, and you can see that in the pie chart at the bottom. Next, the statistics. African Americans are 7.5 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of serious crimes than whites in the United States, as I just stated, with murder, drugs, and other huge charges. African Americans are more likely to be convicted of these crimes. And I have a video to watch for this. So we're going to go to YouTube real quick.
A new study is shedding light on why Black people are more likely than white people to be wrongfully convicted of a crime. Researchers with the National Registry of Exonerations found innocent Black people are 7 times more likely to be convicted for murder, 12 times more likely for drug crimes, and 3.5 times more likely for sexual assault than innocent white people. The reasons range from accidental to systematic and even intentional. When it comes to murders, the researchers point to an already high murder rate in the Black community. They say, quote, if the real criminal is Black, anybody who is mistakenly convicted for that crime will almost inevitably be Black as well. But that's only part of the story. The researchers also found wrongful murder convictions against Black defendants were 22% more likely to include police misconduct. The researchers also say police are more likely to strongly enforce drug laws against Black people, despite evidence that Black and white populations use illegal drugs at pretty equal rates. Since 1989, over 1,800 defendants were cleared of drug crimes after it was proven officers framed them. The majority of those exonerated were Black. But some causes of the racial disparity can be accidental. That issue is frequently seen in sexual assault cases, which often rely on eyewitness testimony. Research has shown people are better at recognizing faces of those who are of the same race as they are. And while only a small portion of sexual assaults in the US involve a Black man and a white woman, they make up half of the sexual assault cases where an eyewitness misidentification led to the conviction. The exonerations researchers also note across the different types of crimes, Black people receive longer prison sentences on average and face greater resistance in proving their innocence.
Okay. So that video talked a lot about the different types of discrimination that Black people have to face when they're convicted today. Some strategies for resilience to promote healthy functioning and well-being would include more representation in politics from African Americans, which means that we would have to vote them in for these positions. So that is also why it is important for voting, which is why I included the picture of Kamala Harris and Barack Obama, as well as pictures of African Americans voting, because that is very important to be able to get more representation in politics. And I also feel it is important to continue movements to the right for African Americans. And it is important to continue to fight for the right of African Americans in many different things that we have seen. African American males are much more likely to be convicted of things than white males, and it is important to fight for the right for them to be innocent until proven guilty. And my conclusion is the United States is haunted by its past, and laws continue to discriminate against African American citizens. With these tactics still being used and put into place to suppress Black citizens, taking a back seat is not an option. With resilience, we can put help to overcome the racist past which America was infringed upon. And yeah, these are my sources that I used. Thank you.